Hello and welcome to Sector Scan. Today we're going to talk about two sectors. One is retail and the other is metals. Metals have been outperforming and they have come as a surprise lately with all the metal stocks outperforming the broader markets. To talk on metals, I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Devang Sangvi, Lead Analyst Metals ICICI Direct. Welcome, Devang.
Hi, Gautam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Devang, what is really driving the metal space? I mean, it has come as a surprise. Everybody was not so bullish on the metal space, say 6 months back, but now things are really turning in favor of metals.
Yeah, Gitu, that's very much correct. Metal sector has been a shining star for last 12 months or so. See, what has happened with the metal space is basically there's been positive news from China, which has aided the pricing. And secondly, the recently announced US infrastructure plan has been also quite good for the metal demand.
Mhm.
And both these factors, which are the largest economy, US and China, have played in favor for the metal cycle. Now, what we've seen is that the metal prices are on uptick, and so has been the metal stocks. So this has been quite a positive performance and a positive surprise for all of us. Now, if I give you a context on the pricing front, currently the steel prices are at around 60,000 rupees per ton, which
Right.
is like 60% higher from the July 2020 lows of 36,500 per ton.
Mhm.
So, with higher pricing, steel companies would report a very strong performance.
Mhm.
The same case and the same traction has been witnessed in the non-ferrous space also.
Mhm.
If I give a context of the aluminum pricing,
Mhm.
currently aluminum prices are at 3-year high and trading at around US dollar 2300 per ton.
Mhm.
So that will help the aluminum players in the segment.
Mhm.
Even the zinc prices are currently trading at US dollar 2800 per ton, which
Mhm.
is also a 1-year high.
Okay.
So this will also benefit the zinc players.
Mhm.
So the positive traction in the pricing would help both the ferrous as well as the non-ferrous plays. One thing to point out is that the world's largest metal consumer, which is China, has seen a strong traction in demand. And because of the same, we expect the prices to remain firm going forward also.
Can we expect the prices to go up? I mean, you just said that it is expected that the prices will remain firm. But what is the quantity of jump that we can expect in near future from the Indian companies?
Right, Gitu. Just to give a context on the steel pricing at the moment, in the month of April only, the steel companies have hiked the prices twice to around 5 to 6,000 rupees per ton. So this hike has already come recently only. So I think the prices will now consolidate for 3-4 months, and this pricing what we are seeing at the moment are like an all-time high for steel companies.
Okay.
So this will take some time to be absorbed in the market. It will consolidate, which is also already a higher level at the moment.
Mhm. So, talking about ferrous metal space, which are the companies that you like the most and why?
Within the ferrous space, we like something like a Graphite India. Now, speaking about Graphite India is India's largest player of graphite electrodes with an annual capacity of 98,000 ton. To give a context of the graphite electrode sector as a whole, graphite electrode are used in the electric arc furnace route of steel making. So
Okay.
basically, there is a direct correlation between the steel produced through the EF route and the graphite electrode demand. As the production through the EF route increases, the demand for electrodes also increases. Now, with firm steel pricing, the steel production is on an upward trend. So this will help something like a Graphite India, which is the largest player, and we will believe that Graphite India will be a key beneficiary of the upcycle in the steel at the moment.
Devang, if you talk about the metal space as Graphite India also, we saw a very good run up in all these stocks. So would it be sensible to really invest at these levels or we should wait for some correction to happen and then enter?
Within the other metal companies, I believe one should kind of wait because it will be a both consolidation also going in the market and the stocks, and we also believe that results will be a key indicator, and the commentary going forward will be a key indicator
Mhm.
for the companies.
Mhm. In the non-ferrous space, what do you like the most?
In the non-ferrous space, we like something like a Hindalco. Just like the traction we've seen in the ferrous prices,
Mhm.
there has been also strong traction in the non-ferrous companies also, and non-ferrous pricing also.
Mhm.
So if you give an indicator, Hindalco has performed really well over the last couple of years, thanks to the strong performance from the wholly owned subsidiary Novelis.
Mhm.
Now, metal prices are generally volatile in nature, so are the earnings of the metal companies, as we all know.
Mhm.
But with Hindalco, what we have seen is that earnings are stable as compared to other metal peers.
Mhm.
This is because Hindalco has focused towards the downstream product portfolio, and that's why their earnings are quite stable in nature. And that is what we like about the company. So going forward within the non-ferrous space, we prefer something like a Hindalco, and we expect a good traction in their performance because of the strong performance from the Novelis.
What is the capacity utilization for most of the metal companies as of now? And do you expect some kind of an expansion to come up for all these companies?
See, if I give you a context of the steel companies, broadly they are operating at optimum capacity utilization levels, 90% kind of a levels they could be reporting for Q4. And that is where they would kind of look for expansion, but I think they would announce the same in their numbers, the capacity quantum and the capex for the same. So we'll wait for their announcement, but then because they are at optimum, we can see some amount of announcement going forward on the capex front.
What is your view on public sector company like SAIL, which has done very well as far as the price movement on the stock exchanges is concerned? Are the fundamentals really backing it up?
Yeah, Sale has been a quite a performer recently. See, one thing with Sale is that they have repaid good amount of debt in last year. If I look at their balance sheet, they have repaid around 16,000 crores of debt in the last fiscal. So
Mhm.
just to give a quantum, that debt has declined from 51,500 to 36,500. And that is quite a decline, and which augurs well for the company because their balance sheet also improves quite significantly. So one is the debt repayment what Shale has done, which has reflected in their stock price performance, and secondly their capacity, what they are kind of on the verge of commissioning, that will help the volume growth also going forward. So Shale up move has been backed by the debt repayment and the uptick in the steel cycle.
Which are the other companies that would benefit because of their cleaning up of the balance sheet and their debt coming down?
Another company which we like is Tata Metallics. It is undergoing its expansion plans.
Mhm.
It is expanding their ductile line capacity from 2 lakh tons to 4 lakh tons, which will be commissioning over next 1 year and 1.5 year going forward. Now, this is one of the key players in the segment, and the demand for ductile pipe is expected to remain strong because it is used for sanitation purpose, and there is a huge capex being planned for the water infrastructure out here.
Mhm.
So we believe Tata Metallics is an underplay, which will be beneficial. And even if I look at Tata Metallics balance sheet out here, it has 200 crores of cash, and it is very rare for a metal company or a metal pipe company out here to have a cash in their balance sheet.
Right.
So I think Metallics will do Tata Metallics should do well going forward.
What is your expectation from the Q4 earnings of these metal companies? It is expected that they all will do well because of the pricing, up move that we have seen for all these metal companies. So, what do you expect, and which of the companies do you expect to outperform and yield better price momentum for the investors?
Yes, Gitu. As you have rightly pointed out, metal companies will report a very strong performance for Q4, aided by higher realization. Just to give a context, the steel prices are in the range of 2,000 rupees per ton. Hence, we expect the EBITDA per ton of steel companies to increase in the range of 3 to 6,000 rupees per ton. To just give a context, Tata Steel Q3 FY21 EBITDA per ton was 20,000 rupees per ton. We expect the same to increase to 26,000 rupees per ton for Q4. Similarly, sales EBITDA per ton in Q3 was 12,200 rupees per ton. Same is likely to increase to 15,000 rupees per ton in Q4. And JSW Steel's EBITDA per ton in Q3 was 14,400 per ton. We expect the same to increase to 19,000 rupees per ton.
Mhm.
Just like the ferrous place, even non-ferrous prices are on a uptick. If I look at the zinc prices, they are higher by 5% Q on Q and 29% YOY.
Mhm.
Similarly, aluminum prices are higher by 9% QOQ and 24% YOY.
Mhm.
So this higher pricing would lead to increase in operating margins of both the ferrous players
Mhm.
as well as the non-ferrous players.
Mhm. But are these operating margins or the EBITDA margins we call, are these sustainable in the long run? Because till now the things are really working out for them. But would they be sustainable, taking into consideration the kind of cost run up that we're seeing?
See, if I look at the metal space and if I look at China, there has been a healthy traction in Chinese demand and that has supported the pricing. Now, what benefit the Indian players is most of them or majority of them have their captive resources also. So while globally we see a cost curve going on because of coupled with lower labor costs are better placed.
Mhm.
And so the only risk being the coking coal prices, which we normally import in a huge quantity. Other costs are under control for steel companies. If I look at Tata Steel and say 100% of their iron ore integration is there for both of them. So
Okay.
they are able to kind of report good margins.
Mhm. One big risk factor that one should keep in mind before investing in metal space.
Uh, the big risk could be basically again related to China only out here because 50% of all the metal consumption comes from China.
Mhm.
So the Q1 GDP numbers were broadly in line. 19% was the expectation. They reported 18.3%. If we expect some drawdown or the decline in GDP from higher quantum going forward, if there's a Chinese slowdown or a hard landing, that could be a key risk for the metal companies. On the cost structure side, domestically, steel companies are well placed, but then on the realization front, we are basically the price takers out here. So
Mhm.
anything with respect to kind of drawdown in pricing could impact the prospects for the metal sector.
Mhm. Any mid cap or a small cap company that you identified in the metal space and you like them most?
See, one is the Graphite India, as I pointed on the ferrous space, and another also the Tata Metallics. One more company which we'll prefer is Ratnamani Metal and Tubes. See, Ratnamani is a very specialized player in the pipe and tube segment.
Mhm.
It is like a 35% market share in a niche category, what it operates in the stainless steel segment.
Mhm.
And in Q4, it has commissioned its expansion plans for the stainless steel segment.
Okay.
So going forward, it will reap the benefits of the higher capacity in next couple of years. So
Mhm.
Ratnamani again has a very clean balance sheet. It is a net cash company for a pipe company, which is again a very good sign. So Ratnamani is the key important player or key performer we like in the metal space.
So all in all, metal space looks, good in near future for investment.
Yes, yes, it's a bright space at the moment and supported by the upcycle well.
Thank you, Devang, for being with us. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for your time.
Now let's talk about the retail sector. To talk on retail, I have with me Mr. Bharat, lead analyst, retail, ICICI Direct. Welcome, Bharat.
Hi, Gitu. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Bharat, if we talk about the current scenario, the COVID-19 second wave has struck us hard. So, what's your view on the retail space? How are things really panning out?
See, broadly, if you look at it, the retail sector has been impacted majorly because of COVID, and it has been having a significant impact, like in the earlier Q1 and Q2. Similar things are now happening in the state and regional lockdowns. So these things, what they would immediately do is like you would have lower footfalls and a period of low revenues due to closure of physical stores. So probably in the near term there could be some impact on this, but again you have to look at which regions are open, which regions are closed. But one thing is sure that probably the companies have learned how to live with it. So that key thing is there. Earlier they were not aware how to do the certain things and how things would be done in a pandemic, that kind of thing. But now they are better prepared, like their e-commerce channels are working, their delivery, home delivery kind of things, and a lot of other initiatives that they have taken have started to bear fruit. And if you look at what has happened, like earlier when the pandemic started, they were around 70-80% down in the revenues. and then they have recovered to good levels. So probably I don't see that significant of an impact in this regional lockdowns that are happening, and probably they would be better prepared because what have they seen earlier, because what they had seen last time was a total unknown. So from that perspective, I think they are very well prepared comparatively at this juncture.
Mhm. What are the key trends, Bharat, that have emerged during this time of pandemic? Because as you said, they are little ready now from the times that we saw last year. So, what are the key trends which are emerging in retail space?
Yeah, this is one of the major things, like the learnings from the pandemic period have been implemented by a lot of companies. Like the first thing that they are doing is during the low revenue periods, they have curtailed their expenditure and tried to cull out the unwanted expenditure from the cost structure. So probably that is one thing. Then lot of this savings, they are saying that probably what would happen is like they would be structural in nature. So probably earlier, as we used to see that a lot of traveling used to happen for every meetings and all that. But probably now we have learned that probably a lot of things can be done through virtual and all that. So probably that would reduce and that would provide something like a structural saving in their total cost. So when the revenue returns to normalcy, probably they would be able to show better margins because the operating leverage would then come into play. When the revenues would be normal and the cost would be down, then probably the margins over the longer term in a normal period should improve. Another thing that is there is definitely, as we have talked about, is that the e-commerce has gained significance a lot in during this period. Another thing is they have learned to manage the inventory very well. Now, what has happened is like earlier they used to stock a lot of things, but now the ordering cycle has probably reduced and they have curtailed the purchasing cycle to short period and are purchasing smaller lots to just avoid the inventory obsolescence risk. So that is one thing. And also, what they have been doing is like a lot of companies have expanded into tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Probably these are the ones that have been less impacted by the pandemic, and probably the business economics over there are also favorable because of the lower rentals and probably the revenues they generate, so they are favorable. And another thing is like the capex. What the companies have done is they have totally reduced their capex. Like earlier they used to open a lot of stores, but now what they are doing is they have deferred the store opening, and probably they would look at normalcy returning and then doing that expenditure. So FY21 would definitely be lower on capital expenditure compared to either a FY20 or a FY19.
If we talk
These
about
are
the
the broad things.
Yeah. If we talk about the rental space, which is a major component, cost component for these retail companies, do you expect the negotiations to happen again if the current scenario continues for some more time?
This would be very company specific and region specific. Like if the lockdowns are for a longer period or something happening like that, then probably the landlords would give you that waiver that they had given earlier. But if it is a case like it is for a short period, then probably the companies would have to probably take a hit on that, because what earlier was talked about, like they would have given for a 6 month period kind of a thing, the waivers on rentals. So probably with revenue which was reaching 85-90% levels, then probably your rentals should also be going back to those levels, because you can't constantly tell the landlords to give you that kind of a concession where your revenues is reaching close to your normalcy. So it would be region specific, and in that region, probably if you are having revenues close to your earlier, so that kind of thing would be brought into play, and then only the decision on whether they would get waivers. So it would be very region specific and store specific.
Mhm. What's your view on e-commerce emergence and omni-channel retail?
Well, e-commerce had always been growing at a faster pace than the physical stores. But what has happened due to the pandemic is basically this has accelerated the journey or the shift from the physical store to the e-commerce. And most of the companies have started investing in building their own websites, their backend, like the fulfillment centers. A lot of money is going into that because they understand now that one thing is there. Now the consumer has shifted to probably e-commerce, and a lot of them might stay there and would like to have the convenience of delivery at home. So probably building that kind of capabilities in your system is necessary. So it is like wherever the customer wants, we have to be there. And they have understood this. Because of this, probably what has happened is like the concept of omni-channel has also gained a lot of, you can say, prevalence over in this period. Because what they want is like, even if he wants a delivery from a store, he will be delivered from the store. Or he goes to the stores and doesn't find anything, probably then he would order online and just place an order and he would receive a delivery. So that culmination of physical and this, actually there is totally, you can say, connect now. Companies would say we want to be where the customer is, which was not there earlier. Physical companies used to say, I don't want to go for e-commerce. E-commerce is not my play and all that was the talk. But now what we are finding is that every company is building up an e-commerce backbone, and they are wanting to have part of that space. And probably it is also channel specific they are looking at, and they're putting up products channel specific. What they want to put in, probably e-commerce might not be there on the store. So these differentiating strategies they are doing. But definitely, yes, e-commerce is there to stay and would be growing at a faster pace from here on.
Which consumer segment of the retail do you like the most and do you prefer?
Well, if I look at consumer segments, then jewelry has been a resilient one, and there has been athleisure apparel and the kitchen appliances retail. So broadly, if you look at jewelry, jewelry has really performed well during this period, like except for the Q1 where there was significant decline because the stores themselves were not open, and then you had no weddings happening and all that. So wedding has bounced back. Wedding jewelry has bounced back significantly. If you look at wedding jewelry Q3 and Q4, the revenues have grown significantly for major players. So that has given a, you can say, bump to the revenue growth for jewelry companies. And also, one more thing is like gold as an asset class and investment in gold coins has also increased during this period as a safe haven. So probably that gold coins growth has also been attributing to the growth in the revenues. On the athleisure apparel, that has been majorly driven by work from home culture that has evolved. So a lot of people preferring athleisure kind of clothes, and that has been driving this. And that we think is a trend that is likely to continue as we get commentary from the companies. They are saying that athleisure has been a key growth area, and they would focus on that from a longer term perspective as well.
Mhm.
And the third segment is the kitchen appliances. Now, what has happened is like in kitchen appliances, like there has been an accentuated, you can say, preference from the consumers regarding home cooked food, and they have been staying at home. So a lot of appliances they have been buying, and this has led to significant growth. And even if you look at the major companies or even the smaller companies, they have done significantly well in the third and probably the third quarter and fourth quarter commentary. What is coming is also very good kind of double-digit growth coming in for all of this. So these are the segments that probably would be still continuing from here on a, you can say, sustained growth trajectory.
Which of the stocks do you like for investment and recommend your clients?
Well, among the stocks that we like, definitely Titan, Trent, and TTK Prestige. I'll tell you, Titan has a unique feature. Like whenever there are difficult times, it has emerged even more stronger. If you look at it, when GST had come initially, there was a lot of how the industry would and do, and in fact, Titan appeared emerged out of it as a beneficiary, because what had happened at that time is like the smaller players were because of the cost compliance and all that had a lot of issues. So Titan gained market share in that period, and Titan still has a trigger like. In the coming few months, you would have the gold hallmarking, compulsory gold hallmarking coming in. Again, this would be a difficult period for the unorganized players where, again, they would have to do this compulsory kind of a thing. And again, the cost of compliance and all that should go up for them. Whereas Titan is majorly already compliant with that. So that should help them gain further market share. And a lot of smaller players have also had a liquidity stress, whereas Titan's balance sheet is very strong. So that could also play out as a long-term opportunity for Titan to gain share from all of these players. And on the apparel part, we prefer Trend. So Trend, if you look at it, it has always outperformed the peers. Now, what has happened is like the key difference between Trend and other players is like the Trend has private label share in the Westside brand around 99%. So that is significant. You usually have better margins in private label. So that enables it to grow profitably across. And also it has a strong balance sheet, and that should help it tide over the tough situations compared to other apparel players. Because apparel as a segment has been a bit lagging, but the recovery rate for Trent has been much better than the other players.
Okay.
And on the TTK Prestige front, we believe that the accentuated preference that we are having for home cooked food and should help them grow at a very fast pace from here on. And also, it is a pan-India brand, and compared to other smaller brands, it always has a competitive edge to gain more market share. And it has a very high SKU and new launches that are there compared to other players. So if demand is there and they have recently set up additional capacity also, that should help them to capture the market share from here on.
Thank you, Bharat, for being with us. It was nice speaking to you.
Thank you.